from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program. Happy to be with you. We're live, we're national. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And taking a look at what's going on in America tonight, we've got Joe Biden giving his Oval Office address. President Trump is at a rally, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed a joint session of Congress and was had a lot to say. I've got a couple of clips of him. We're going to get to some of that a little bit later. We're scheduled to have Peter Navarro join us, former Trump trade advisor, and I'm hoping that the big outage doesn't get to his plane tonight. And we also have Ashley Hayek from America First Works joining us a little bit later to react to the Biden speech as well as Trump's comments this evening. And I also want to get into some conversation tonight on the silent suffering that people go through. And Leslie Corbly, she's a lawyer and social commentator, is scheduled to join us a little bit later, and I'm looking forward to that as well. But I want to start with Prime Minister Netanyahu because he had a lot to say, and he's confident, right? He's saying that, you know, what's happening right now is not a war between civilizations, Israel versus Hamas, but it's a war between barbarism and civilization. Listen to this.
Our world is in upheaval. In the Middle East, Iran's axis of terror confronts America, Israel, and our Arab friends. This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization. It's a clash between those who glorify death and those who sanctify life. For the forces of civilization to triumph, America and Israel must stand together. Because when we stand together, something very simple happens. We win, they lose. And my friends, I came to assure you today of one thing. We will win.
We will win is what Prime Minister Netanyahu said, and good for him, right? Good for him, sticking to his guns. If I had to put my money on Netanyahu or the guy that runs Hamas, I think I'm going with Netanyahu. Now, he didn't stop there. He continued. We got a few other clips that we'll play throughout the evening. But he took some heat, right? He was taking heat because, you know, Biden, of course, tries to play nice, but Harris didn't bother to play nice with him. And it seems like they're trying to snub the guy, in my opinion. They, you know, and this happens. This is not unique to now. This has happened, I think, every time he's ever done this. There has been an issue depending on who's in office, right? Obama could care less for Netanyahu. He was always very hostile toward him. And Bush was very friendly toward him. Trump, very friendly toward him. So he's always gotten along better with Republicans. But it invited a lot of animosity. And there was a lot, right? All over social media today, you would think that people would be talking about this or some of the other things. No, the big story today was all of the protests outside, all over Washington, D.C., where most notably, a group of pro-Hamas protesters decided to bring down an American flag and then proceeded to burn it quite ceremoniously. And again, I hate that stuff. I absolutely hate it. And you know my position on free speech. I get it. It's protected speech. They're allowed to do it. You got to defend their right to do it whether you like it or not. But, man, I think it's disgusting. I really do. Thousands of them. There were thousands of protesters that were there protesting the war in Gaza. And, you know, the usual, chanting Free Palestine, Free Palestine. They marched towards the Capitol before the police deployed pepper spray on some of them to slow them down. And these protesters, you know, they want an end to the war. But it's never a call on Hamas to stop attacking Israel. It's always a call for Israel to stop fighting and defending themselves against Hamas. Now somebody says, oh, come on, Rich, that's unfair. It's not even a fair fight. They're not defending themselves against Hamas. They're attacking Hamas. There may be an offensive, right? They might be on the offensive. But I think it's safe, responsible, appropriate, and honest to say that they were the ones that attacked them October 7th. And now they're just finishing the job. So, I don't know. I hope this thing, honestly, I hope it comes to an end. I'm tired of seeing, I was tired on day one of seeing people kill each other in the name of this stuff. I understand IDF, the prime minister, they have to do what they have to do. I get it. But honestly, nobody wants to live like this, right? Nobody wants to see people killing each other. We have to put an end to that. This is where, you know, El Trompito comes in handy. You know, his thing is more like, you know, let's figure out a way to make a deal. Let's build a hotel. Let's do something. Not that. And I'm with him. It would be so nice if, you know, maybe we could tell the Hamas people, listen, we know you guys are motivated by your religious animosity, but what if we could put a one of these Trump properties in Gaza and you guys could get rich off of that? What do you think? You know, I wonder if they'd go for it. Something tells me they probably wouldn't. But it would be nice if they did, because that's how foreign policy works in so many ways, right? We figure out a way to cut them in on some of the action, whether it's action on some sort of import or export, action on a tax break to do business with this country. Well, whatever it is, somehow put some money in their pocket. Money is everything in this business, right? They say it's the mother's milk of politics. I learned early on in politics the old saying, it's always about the money. And when it's not about the money, it's about the money. That's the bottom line. Anyway, folks, we're going to continue with our conversation straight ahead. I want to chat with RNC Speaker Peter Navarro. He's scheduled to join us in a little bit. Plus, your calls as well, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I want to share some stuff. There was other stuff that happened in D.C. today. And again, not that we're only reporting on what happened in D.C. and commenting on those events, but there was a hearing today with FBI Director Christopher Wray, and he had some interesting stuff to say. And I want to get into that momentarily. But first, I want to make sure you have the number. In about 10 minutes or so, maybe 10, 15 minutes, we're going to get to your calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And what I want you to do is listen to this clip of FBI Director Christopher Wray today, giving us some information that we didn't have before. Listen to this.
So we have recovered a drone that the shooter appears to have used. It's being exploited and analyzed by the FBI lab. The drone was recovered in his vehicle. So at the time of the shooting, the drone was in his vehicle with the controller. In addition, our investigation has uncovered.
Do you know what time of day he flew it, and if he flew it on the day of the shot?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So in addition, it appears that around 3:50 p.m., 4 o'clock in that window, on the day of the shooting, that the shooter was flying the drone around the area.
2 hours.
About 11 minutes. I want to be clear, but when I say the area, not over the stage and that part of the area itself, but I would say about 200 yards, give or take, away from that. We think, but we do not know. So again, this is one of these things that's qualified because of our ongoing review, that he was live streaming, viewing the footage from that, again, about 11 minutes. In around the 3:50, 4 o'clock p.m. range.
2 hours before, he's flying a drone in the vicinity of the route.
About 200 yards away, yes.
200 yards. Okay, that's important information.
So there you have this exchange between the director of the FBI and Congressman Jim Jordan. And what's fascinating to me here is that this stuff is coming out little by little, and they're finding out. And I guess that's the nature of investigations. But what is really mind-blowing here is that they allow Trump to stay on the stage. They know about this threat for Lord knows how long. And they allow this shooter to be free. He's unencumbered until he actually he takes several shots. Then they take action. He's free. No problem. But you get a PhD level economist that works in the White House that says he has presidential privilege, and the privilege is not his to relinquish, gets held in contempt of Congress, just like so many before him that walked away and laughed, like Eric Holder and others. Yet this one, and he's been on this program before and he's talked about it, he's the one that gets arrested with the leg irons and the shackles and all that crazy stuff, and has to go to jail for quite a while, way longer than I expected him to be there, only to finally get his freedom back, give a kick-ass speech at the RNC, and now he's here with us. I want you to welcome Peter Navarro back to the program. Peter Navarro, welcome, sir.
Hey, you're my good friend, buddy. It's been too long, I think.
But, yes, sir. Way too long.
Good to be out. I've got my secret weapon here. New book. It's called The New Maga Deal. Don Jr. published it. And I can't wait to try to help President Trump get elected in November. What's interesting about the new MAGA deal, Rich, is that I began it right after the 2022 congressional race, which was, as you remember, one of the most disappointing elections Republicans ever had. I mean, that whole red wave that was supposed to come over didn't happen. And I looked at it, said to myself, there's two things going on here. One is that we beat these radical Democrats on just about every policy based on polling, whether it's the economy, border security, foreign policy, weaponization of the justice system. But we're not getting that message out. And number two, they seem to be able to successfully marginalize MAGA, Make America Great Again, as a four-letter word. Yeah. So what I try to do in this new MAGA deal book, Rich, is two things. One, I lay out the Trump platform. The subtitle's kind of fun. It's the unofficial deplorables guide to the Trump 2024 platform, right? And about a third of the chapters are written by Trump administration veterans, folks like Mike Davis, who you've seen on TV a lot, Russ Vought, the OMB director, Rick Ganell on foreign policy, and 100 actions in 100 days. I want people to understand that Donald Trump, if he wins, is going to hit the ground running and simultaneously hit all points of the policy compass. We got actions on the economy, the border, foreign policy, transgender in women's sports, and the whole gamut of things. But the most important, I think, about the new Maga Deal book, you can get it at newmagadeal.com or Amazon, is that it explains how sensible MAGA is. They try to say on the radical left that MAGA is not mainstream. This is mainstream, Main Street America. And if I can take you back just for a minute, back to 2016, when I first got with the president, I would be the only one of 3 senior advisors who would be with him through the whole term as well as the campaign. That's when the crucible of MAGA was forged. And if you remember, Rich, he was one of 17 Republican candidates.
Oh, yeah.
16 of them were espousing the Republican Party of Wall Street. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. We love tax cuts. We love minimal regulation. But what distinguished Donald Trump immediately was what I call in the new MAGA deal the iron triangle of MAGA. At the top of that is a strong manufacturing and defense industrial base that you get by domestic manufacturing through fair trade, buy American, hire American, and tariffs on countries like communist China. That's the essence of MAGA at the top of the triangle. Then you got border security. Why? Not just for the economy. These millions of illegal aliens that Kamala Harris let in because she didn't do her job on the border. They're driving down the wages of black, brown, and blue-collar Americans, stealing their jobs. But it's also all of the crime, the Islamic terrorists, the Chinese spies, the fentanyl killing 100,000 Americans a year. You can't have a country without a border. So you have strong manufacturing base, border security, the third part of that triangle, and the endless wars. And this one is personal for me, Rich, because there were more than once I was up at Walter Reed Hospital when I was in the White House, seeing young men and women, quadriplegics, paraplegics, trying to regain their life after losing their limbs in the hellholes of Iraq and Afghanistan. And so I want people to be able to say, you know, what's MAGA? I want them to be able to explain. MAGA is beautiful. MAGA is a beautiful word. It's strong American manufacturing, border security, and not being the world's policeman. And that's all it is. And these Democrats who put me in prison trying to say that they're somehow the middle of the road party when they're doing crazy stuff like genital mutilization of young boys, indoctrination of our youth in our schools, diversity, equity, inclusion across corporate America by force. These folks are so radical. So New MAGA Deal, that's the book at newmagadeal.com. It's on Amazon. And my mission is to help use that book as a weapon to defend ourselves against the attacks from the left and as an offensive weapon to beat them on policy.
Absolutely, and that's what you got to do. Stick with me, Peter Navarro. We're coming right back with former White House trade advisor Peter Navarro. We're talking about his brand new book. You got to get a copy of it for yourself and one to give away. The New MAGA Deal, the unofficial deplorables guide to Donald Trump's 2024 policy platform. Peter Navarro, stick with me. Folks, we're coming right back with Peter Navarro. Don't go anywhere.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Yes, indeed. This morning I did walk out of a federal prison in Miami. Joe Biden and his Department of Injustice put me there. Tonight I'm here with you in this beautiful city of Milwaukee. I've got a very simple message for you. If they can come for me, And if they can come for Donald Trump, be careful. They will come for you.
Folks, that is former White House trade advisor Peter Navarro at the RNC just a few days back. And he's right. They came for him. They put him in prison because of his loyalty to the rule of law and to the service that he provided to this country. And that didn't matter. They went and did it anyway. He's the author of a brand new book that you got to get a copy or two of. I'd recommend getting one for yourself, one to give away. It's called The New Maga Deal, The Unofficial Deplorables Guide to Donald Trump's 2024 Policy Platform. It's published by 45 Books, so big shout out to Sergio Gore and the team at Winning Publications. And Peter Navarro, when you gave that speech, it seemed so genuine, so honest, so forthright. And what was the, the feeling that you got and the welcome that you received from the delegates there?
Yeah, that's a lovely question because I was in prison for 4 months. It's very difficult to get any kind of information. You don't have any access to the internet. I didn't know if anybody knew who I was. And I walked out on that stage, and it's probably the warmest, loudest welcome I've ever received. And it just got the whole night started. It was a beautiful thing. And the message, if I keep going in that speech, one punchline after that was this: if we don't control our government, their government will control us. And then I said, if we don't control all three branches of our government, legislative, executive, judicial, their government will put some of us in prison and control the rest of us. And what I did then, Rich, is just the lived experience. It took all three branches of the government of the United States of America, legislative, executive, judicial, to put me behind bars. And that's the danger of letting radical Democrats control our government. It started with the House of Representatives and Pelosi holding me in contempt for simply honoring executive privilege and the constitutional separation of powers against that sham J6 committee. Merrick Garland, the executive branch attorney general, indicts and prosecutes me for a crime that's never been a crime in our history. And the Department of Justice itself said, Rich, if Congress comes a calling with a subpoena, it's my duty as a presidential advisor to protect executive privilege, tell Congress to go pound sand. And then the thing that I'm most shocked and disenchanted by is our judicial system right now. You've seen this Judge Juan Marchand in the kangaroo court trial, what he did to Donald Trump, stripped him of all his defenses. The other judge took $500 million from him. I had this judge named Ahmed Maida, Obama appointee. This son of a bitch not only stripped me of every single defense before I got to the jury for a foregone guilty verdict in the District of Columbia, where the jury pool voted 95% for Biden. How's that for a kangaroo court?
Wow.
That SOB refused to grant me release, what's called release pending appeal. Ahmed Maida knows damn well that my case is the landmark constitutional case on executive privilege as it relates to congressional subpoenas, and he knows damn well I should win that at the Supreme Court, which means that my case would have been dismissed or sent for a retrial, which means that he sent me to prison for something that down the line, when I win my appeal, I will have no recourse. That's what's called irreparable harm. And I think the Democrats did that. They're doing it to Trump to keep him out of the Oval, but they're doing it to people like me and Steve Bannon to send a signal to take away President Trump's ability to recruit good advisors. The signal is, hey, we're going to put you in prison if you serve Donald Trump. And that's just wrong, and it's backfiring. People are pissed off. I mean, people got it at that RNC. I was shocked at the warmth and loudness at reception, but then I thought about it. They understand that the weaponization of our injustice system is wrong, and it's not just Republicans I'm hearing that from. It's independents and a lot of Democrats. And one of the lines I couldn't speak because we had to cut the speech for time constraints. Everybody had short, punchy speeches, and good for them for organizing that way. I was going to say, I'm standing here, and the only way we're going to win the election is not just to unite the party, but to unite the country. And you know, Rich, there's a ton of traditional Democrats who are disengaged from, disenfranchised by, or disgusted with the radical left turn the Democratic elites have taken the Democrat Party. And right now we're seeing African Americans and Latinos coming to Trump world. We're seeing soccer moms who are sick of going to school board meetings to ask for reading, writing, and arithmetic and wind up with the FBI at their door, all this woke stuff. So the MAGA base, the Republican base, is solid as a rock, but we're seeing fractures and fissures in that Democrat base because the Democrat elites have taken that party so far out into left field. It's going to be interesting, but it's going to be a tough election because we're not running against Kamala Harris. We're running against CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and all of that corporate media. I mean, to me, the alphabet networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, they're as bad as CNN and MSNBC based on my experience. They cancel everybody on Trump land, and they spin in favor of Kamala, Joe, and whatever. I mean, Kamala hid that fact that everybody in the West Wing could see that Joe Biden was dysfunctional. I wrote back in January, Rich, that Biden would not be the nominee, that he would basically run through the primaries to prevent a contested primary so they wouldn't have to expose all their radical craziness in an actual democratic process. And that he would either turn over the reins voluntarily or they'd cut his knees out, but he would not be the nominee. That's exactly what's going on now. And the coronation and this, that, and everything. They're putting somebody in there who got 2% of the vote in the primary in the 2020, and they're acting like she's the savior. And if you look at her record, Rich, it's frightening.
It really is. Folks, we're on with Peter Navarro, former White House trade advisor to President Trump. He's the author of the brand new book, The Maga Deal, The Unofficial Deplorables Guide to Donald Trump's 2024 Policy Platform. And Peter Navarro, I mean, we could do this for days. I know there's a lot to discuss, and you've probably had a tough media run promoting the book. But I want you to let everybody that's listening know how they get a copy, if there's a place to get a signed copy, or the place that you recommend that they go to get 1 or 2 copies of the book.
That's great, Rich. Okay. Website, newmagadeal.com. Newmagadeal.com. You can get a signed copy there. That's the home of winning strategies of publishing of Don Jr. And Sergio Gore is just an amazing guy. I've been so much fun to work. If Amazon's your jam, you can get a regular copy there using your Prime and all that stuff. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or newmagadeal.com, and use this book as a defensive weapon when they attack MAGA and as an offensive weapon to beat them on policy. Because if we just run this campaign on policy, that's all we would need to do, because we beat them on everything: economy, border, national security, everything on down.
Outstanding. Peter Navarro, I want to thank you for being here, for staying up late with us. Welcome back. I'm glad you're free. Free Peter Navarro. Hashtag Free Peter Navarro worked out. Godspeed to you as you move forward with the case, sir.
I'm glad your show's doing so well, Rich. You take care of yourself. We'll talk again soon, brother.
You bet. God bless. All right, folks, and we come back to your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
you have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
As border czar, Kamala threw open our borders and allowed 20 million illegal aliens to stampede into our country from all over the world. As vice president, she cast the tie-breaking votes that created the worst inflation in a half a century, decimating middle-class families and hurting very badly, as you know, all people in North Carolina.
That, of course, is El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, at his rally in North Carolina tonight, taking shots at the record of Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States. And, of course, Kamala Harris is, she's got a pretty abysmal record. She really doesn't have much of a record at all, honestly. She's not doing great in the record department. Joe wasn't doing great there. That's why he kind of got taken out. And now she's in, and I don't know that she's any better other than she's going to use this prosecutor line. But I want to know what you guys think, because in my opinion, this is, I don't know, I think a slight bump, if any, right? We've seen some money coming in, so that's effective for the Democrats. But what does Kamala really provide in terms of a win? Does she really beat Trump? Does she really bring something so unique to the table that people will forget about Biden's record? I don't know, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Let's go to the phones, 833-4825-337-833-4Valdez. Let's go to Bedford, Indiana, WBIW in the building, and check in with Sarah. It's been a while. Sarah, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. I'm still off with my injury because I can't go back to work until I'm restriction-free, so I'm looking going back in September, but I've got my job waiting for me, so everything's cool. So I'm going to try to make this really quick. Just real quick, I know we've talked about Joe McCarthy. I'm reading a great book by M. Stanton Evans called Blacklisted by History, and basically McCarthy was right. The people he fingered as communists or communist sympathizers definitely were. One thing you realize in reading this book is how thoroughly our government and services upon which our government depended were infiltrated not only with KGB rings, but a lot of communist sympathizers. The scariest thing, though, is it's like history's folding back on itself. You realize how infiltrated our government is with people who are antithetical or who do not like our values. But what is scarier is, at least back in those times, those people just were fighting getting exposed. Nowadays, they have power and they're persecuting people just like your guests on the show. That's what's really scary is they don't have to worry about being discovered. They're so confident they're actually going after their political enemies. And typical communist fashion, using the rule of law, show trials, double standards of justice. We are at a really precarious moment. But it's good to hear from you, by the way.
Likewise. I'm happy to hear from you, too, and I'm glad that you tuned in. And I think you're right. And, you know, it's interesting. I think the American people are just fed up. This is not, and not to slight Trump in any way, but this is not necessarily we love Trump. I think there's a lot of people that love America, and they love what Trump stands for in defending America. I think there's other people that say, you know what they're doing to Trump is unfair, so I'm voting for the guy because you don't do that to people. And then I think the third faction is there's people that do love Trump, and they're just like, you know, this guy's fantastic. But I think the default here is people don't love Biden, they don't love the Democrats, and they don't love Kamala Harris. Do you see any benefit? How much? I guess the question really is: how much better than Biden does she do at the end of the day? Do you think she pulls off an extra 10%, an extra 15%? What do you think, Sarah?
She'll have a bit of a percentage. It won't be an astounding percentage because, if I remember correctly, she was one of the people who actually dropped out early in the 2020 Democratic primary. If I remember correctly, she had a pretty lackluster campaign. She may be a bit younger than Biden, but she just isn't that smart. There's nothing particularly wonderful about her personality, her intelligence, or anything. She may get a few more points just because there are certain groups who will see her as a female or black or whatever, you know, the checklist category. They don't care if she's competent or not, but not much. She's such a lackadaisical person as far as intelligence and personality. I just don't see her pulling a lot of people. What scares me more, because I agree with you, there are a lot of people who don't necessarily love Trump, but they're really turned off by the heavy-handedness of the Democratic Party. What scares me is that these people are so totalitarian in mind that I'm kind of scared that they're going to be confident enough to try to pull some chicanery, whether it's through the use of the judicial system, or whether they just let some harm come to Trump like what almost happened, or massive riots. But I'm almost scared that these leftists today are like the Khmer Rouge. I keep honing that point, but really, if you read about the Khmer Rouge, you'll see that crazy, almost ignorant hatred that typifies the hardcore left of today. And I'm afraid that they don't care what everybody else thinks,
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, Sarah. Thank you for the call. I got to take a quick pause right here. Coming right back to the rest of your calls. Sarah in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Thank you again. Coming right back with, let's see, we've got West Virginia on the line, Idaho on the line, Montana on the line. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
So, que mala eres, the borders are. What a failure she is on multiple fronts, according to the Trump campaign, and I think most of the American people. I want to very quickly get you guys to weigh in before we run out of time this hour. Let's go to Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, and check in with Sue. Go right ahead. WXD.
Hey, Rich. Well, I wanted to relate a little story around your guest, Peter Navarro. When he was in prison there, I wrote him a letter of support, which a lot of people were doing. And within days of sending that letter, I got a text message from somebody who was asking for money, who had obviously intercepted his mail. And I did a little research on the phone number that the text message was emanating from. And as it turned out, it was another inmate in the prison who was in there for a major fraud case. And so I wrote a letter to the director of the Bureau of Prisons in Washington, D.C., to the regional director for the Southeast region, and to the warden of FCI Miami. And that guy was pulled out of general population and put into the SHU for what he was up to there.
Wow. And, that was, if I had more time with him, that was going to be my next question. How were you received in prison? Did they show you a lot of love, or did they not? Because that's definitely a question that I would love to hear the answer to. Sue in Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, thank you for that info. I appreciate it. And let me see, with a minute to go, I want to go to Tom in Marlinton, West Virginia, listening online, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead quickly.
Yeah, I find it ironic that the four horsemen, Pelosi, Schumer, Obama, and Jeffries, basically told Joe Biden, you either resign or we will invoke the 25th Amendment. And not any of the liberal news outlets are asking that.
Right. Yeah, very little reporting on that. And you're right. Who's the real threat to democracy here? Unbelievable. Tom in Marlinton, West Virginia, thank you for the call. Big shout out to everybody listening online tonight. You can always catch the show live, richvaldez.com. All right, folks, we're coming right back with the rest of the program. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be with you this Wednesday night. And I want to talk about a bunch of things in this hour. Of course, we're going to get to your phone calls, 1-833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation. And part of what we're talking about tonight, of course, the news of the day. Joe Biden has given an address to the nation, and he had a lot to say because he was obviously, this is his first big major address since dropping out. He made this obscure phone call to Kamala Harris that many, including myself, thought was rehearsed, kind of contrived, probably a pre-taped type of thing. And he spoke to the nation tonight, and here's a little bit of what he had to say.
Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln, who implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt, who inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people.
It's not about me. It's about you. Well, he got that one thing right. It's about we, the people. And that's really, that is what is up. It is about we, the people. And we, the people, didn't want him, and he realizes that. And he's doing his best to hold on to his legacy, and, God bless him. I'm glad that we don't have to look forward to another 4 years of Joe El Baboso Biden. But somebody that's out there on the campaign trail competing against Biden in his address is El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. He's been out there on the campaign trail, very critical of Que Mala Eres, the vice president of the United States, seeking to challenge Trump should she get her nomination from the Democrats at the upcoming convention. And Trump blasted her tonight. Check this one out.
Kamala Harris is the most liberal elected politician in American history. Did you know that? She's an ultra-liberal politician. She's absolutely terrible. She's, as you know, more liberal than Bernie Sanders. Can you believe it? She's rated far more liberal than Bernie Sanders. And she's now trying to get rid of her record, but she can't. She's going out and saying things that she doesn't believe. And if she ever got in, she'd destroy this country so fast.
There's El Trompito, not wasting any time, softening, and dare I say, striking the blows to Kamala Harris. Que mala eres, the vice president, who's been coming at him, calling him a predator, calling him a swindler, a crook, a cheat, and all these other things. So it's going to be a lot of blood sport for a while until they get to the record. However, the record is where she loses, I believe. What's she going to do? Biden tried to go after Trump's record. We, the people, have had the opportunity to compare these records. And the record from 2016 to 2020 really just blows away the record of the current administration, the Harris-Biden administration. So they're out, and vice versa. Anyway, now, in addition to all of that, we've got the director of the FBI testifying on Capitol Hill today with respect to the Trump shooting. Listen to this.
Do you have any reason to, do you have any other target of your criminal investigation other than Crooks, who's dead?
We are investigating the shooter both to determine his motive and his preparations and activities before the shooting, but also to make sure whether or not there are any co-conspirators, accomplices.
At this point, have you developed any evidence to so suggest that there are any accomplices or cooperators or assisters?
Not at this time.
And that's what they're talking about right now. Some are saying there are co-conspirators. Others are saying they're not. I understand Director Wray is keeping it tight-lipped. If there is some other loose end that they're, trying to pull on here to figure out what's what, the last thing you want to do is spook people. So I get it. Yeah, look, that's all we know. We just know the one guy. Okay. And maybe he was let me tell you, if the story we're being fed is real, that some 20-year-old kid who left the bicycle and a ladder and this and that or whatever it was, the ladder, I didn't even see the ladder, but whatever, did all these things. There was a car with explosives, allegedly, and a bicycle for him to make his getaway, and all these things that happened. And this kid truly did this all on his own. The kid is very smart, and the security was really lax, or maybe a combination of both. No matter how you slice it, very, very sad day for America. And Tanya Lewis from Scientific American has this article, "The Trump Assassination Attempt Caused Psychological Distress and Fueled Polarization." And the article talks about political violence having a different effect on people today than it did in the past because of social media and extreme partisanship. And I believe that. Maybe not so much the partisanship. As much as people like to buy into that, I really don't care that much about it. And I don't think it's as big a deal as many think. But maybe that's me with my head in the sand. But I do think it's a big deal because of social media, because as Trump was ducking that bullet, I was watching that live by happenstance. Happened to be at a restaurant where the bartender at the restaurant was a listener to my show and was like, "Yeah, I listened to your show." And he pulled out his phone to show me this new Forbes magazine feed that covers politics, I guess, because of the 2024 election. And he was like, "Yeah, I got a lot of good stuff on here. You should check it out. It might be good for your show prep." And he's showing it to me. And one of the open tabs on his phone was, I think it was a Fox News live feed or some other channel had a live feed of the Trump speech. And right as it happened was at that moment, 10 minutes after 6 or whatever. And boom, we both looked at each other and like, did that just happen? And we watched it on mute. And we're like, what is going on? Why is he grabbing his ear? And he gets up, he's bleeding. We're like, oh my God, we're watching something crazy. And it really was a very surreal moment because of just the serendipity of it. But this played over and over and over and over on social media. And this attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump was a massive shock that jarred society, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum. The shooting at Trump's rally in Pennsylvania and hit his ear, bloodied his face, and killed a bystander, critically wounding 2 others. It was profound and it was dangerous. And there are some social divisions in the country, and this underscored that. And that's what this article is about. And ultimately, I agree with that premise of the article, that this division has been exacerbated by this event. And the experts, according to Scientific American, they've found that dramatic instances of political violence can have distressing psychological effects, not only on those who witness them in person, but also on the millions of people who are exposed to these events through online images, videos, and social media. So this is a big deal, and I think it causes people to become anxious and depressed and nervous, and there's a lot. It's a lot of emotion that comes out of this, and that's why I wanted to speak with Leslie Corbly. She's a lawyer, a social commentator, and she wrote a book called Silent Suffering, Poems of Pain and Purpose, and you can get a copy of that on Amazon. But this attempted assassination of Donald Trump, in my opinion, it causes a lot of things to happen. And I want to get her take on that, as well as how there might be people suffering in silence and how we can offer a word of advice to those people. Leslie Corbly, welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So what's your initial reaction to this Scientific American headline that the attempted assassination of Donald Trump caused psychological distress and fueled existing polarization?
I think it's likely fairly accurate. It seems a little almost cliche to say, because we've all lived through the rise of social media. And obviously, if you have a lot of highly charged or emotional events occurring in real time, the people are interacting with very little often with very little context surrounding how to properly or appropriately process what's occurring, kind of stands to reason that you're going to have a heightened sense of emotion around these kind of events. And as politics has become much more personal, right, the government is much more influential in our lives than it used to be, say, 50 years ago. That drives more emotional responses to some of these events, because the interests that, say, someone like Donald Trump may represent, a lot of millions and millions of people see him as kind of a hope to save this country, right? Increasingly, our political landscape is very charged, right? Not just emotionally, but with an idea that if a certain candidate or someone with a certain political philosophy doesn't win the White House, or if your candidates don't win the Senate, then, the cataclysmic effect of that is so dramatic that it's, no shock that that's going to have a lot of heightened emotion surrounding it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I do think a lot of it is par for the course and kind of expected, but also kind of sheds light on something that is a problem that's already there that I think we don't pay enough attention to. And you wrote about this problem, not specifically with the context of politics, but the context of suffering in silence, which I think is a big deal. So I want to talk about that and your book and more when we return straight ahead. And I want to remind the audience that we're on with Leslie Corbly. She's a lawyer, social commentator, and author of Silent Suffering, Poems of Pain and Purpose. Make sure you get the book, Silent Suffering, and you can get it on Amazon or wherever you get your books. Don't go anywhere, because we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, again, thanks to the great one, Mark Levin, for those kind words. And welcome back, America. We continue our discussion. We're on with Leslie Corbly. She's a lawyer, social commentator, and the author of Silent Suffering, Poems of Pain and Purpose. And Leslie, as we look at this situation, the way the left is approaching handling it, the left within the media, the left within our government, the left overall, how they're responding to this, and all the craziness that they're bringing out. It was staged. It was this. It was that. That irrespective of all of that, there's your book, and your book, I think, jives well with this topic. But at the same time, it wasn't written with this in mind. So give us a little context as to the impetus for you writing this book.
Sure. So I wrote what I would call a set of analytic poems, a collection of analytic poems. And by that, I mean that the poetry focuses more on stimulus of the mind rather than stimulus of the body. So when people think of poetry, often you think of the five senses, right? Taste, smell, touch, things of that nature that are highly viscerally emotive. And I took a different turn on that and intentionally looked at the stimulus of the mind, how we think about ourselves, how we think about ourselves in relation to others, so on and so forth. And I did that because I wanted to highlight the ways in which ideas work in both the philosophical realm and the emotive realm. So I think often we think of either emotions, right? You're either emotional or you're analytic, and you kind of have a right brain, left brain dichotomy. And I think that that's a false dichotomy and has not served the conservative and more right of center movement in particular very well, because we sort of ceded the realm of emotion and the realm of storytelling in a way to the left of center, more progressive side. And they've been able to use that monopoly on storytelling to define very important terms of the debate as it relates to the human condition. So things like when you think about compassion, when you think about marginalization or words of that nature, kindness, love, you sort of automatically assume a default setting that is left wing. And I think that that's unfortunate because those words transcend politics, frankly, and transcend any one worldview. They belong to humanity itself. And we need to be able to understand marginalization from more than one angle, right? There is historic marginalization in this country for sure as it relates to certain ethnic groups or whatnot, but to pretend as if that's the only form of pain or marginalization in our country or in our society, both historically or now, I think reduces the complexity of what it looks like to live in a multi-ethnic society like we have here in the U.S.
Folks, we are on with the author of Silent Suffering, Leslie Corbly. She's a lawyer. She comments on the social news of the day, and I think books like this, and I love the approach that you took, because people do have they experience lots of different things, and taking the approach you took, I think, is a good one. In many ways, it reminds me of how radio works, right? It's theater of the mind, and as you were trying to also engage, I get similarly that part of the mind. It's kind of where people get lost, and why I love radio versus TV. And I'm not poo-pooing TV. I think TV's great, but it's way more intimate, way more in depth when you're able to kind of stimulate that part of the mind, and I think that's important. What is some of your expectation for the book? How do you expect it to benefit people?
I think my hope for the book and how I think it would benefit people is to take time to process emotions in a more analytic manner. So a lot of the poems move from things like yearning. So we all yearn for a relationship, we yearn for love, so on and so forth. It moves from that into a section that deals with, that's called infinite complexity, and that deals with things like how do we define good? And it moves from that into like oppression and then ends with hope. So my hope is that people are able to take the poetry and spend more time contemplating, right? Really working through an idea and thinking about it deeply before even necessarily coming to a conclusion. Like really wanting to engage in a holistic understanding of their thought processes before maybe even forming an ultimate conclusion. I think right now we work the other way around, right? People have a lot of preconceived notions. They tend to be in silos, either on the internet or even increasingly in real life, that sort of reaffirm those preconceived notions. And there's not a lot of just time spent truly digging into deep ideas that are very important and impactful, both philosophically and then from that philosophic foundation, how people act out in their lives, right? What they say, what they do, how they treat one another, they act out of that philosophic base. So spending more time trying to develop that is my hope.
Outstanding. Leslie Corbly, let everyone know how they get a copy of the book.
Sure, the book is available on Amazon. My website is lesliecorbly.com. There's a link to it there. It's available through all major bookstores and book retailers. So if you go to barnesandnoble.com, it'll be there too. So yeah, lesliecorbly.com. If you go there, you can easily sign up for my newsletter and receive updates as well on when I write new articles, or I will be writing future books as well. So this is the first of many. My hope is that I compare the poetry with nonfiction books to help readers better analyze.
Well, thank you, Leslie Corbly, for being with us tonight. I appreciate it. Folks, we continue with the rest of our program. We've got your calls coming up as well, 833-482-5337, Open Phone America at the top of the next hour. But first, we've got Ashley Hayek. She's with America First Works, and she's going to weigh in on all things Biden. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
So glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country, is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much, a cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
That is Joe El Baboso Biden, the sitting president of the United States, and passing the torch, trying to soften the blow because he got kicked out of the race. His friends in the Democrat Party were doing him in, and now it's just damage control. But I want to get into that with our guest because she knows exactly what's going on. She's the executive director of America First Works. Ashley Hayek, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So Joe Biden gives this speech tonight. It's his first address from the Oval Office. Big deal, right? Most presidents use the Oval Office to make big deal addresses. He didn't use it for the big deal part of this, right? The big deal was when he said, hey, I'm out, after, doubling down and saying, I'm not going anywhere. And now he's just really kind of, damage control, right? Because he sent the letter on Twitter, and then the next day he does this weird phone call while Kamala's doing a press conference. And now here we have this. It seems very weak, very lackluster, in my opinion. Is this how they plan to win, how they plan to beat El Trompito in November?
Well, there's a few takeaways I have from this. First of all, I look at the catastrophic failure that is his presidency, and I think about how, many people have dedicated their lives to building businesses, creating jobs, fueling the American dream. And this man has served in office for over 50 years. And I would say his legacy is nothing short of a disaster. I mean, this man is not going to be remembered as a leader, but he is a complete puppet. He was bullied out of the White House by his own incompetence and the sheer weight of his failures. And his time in his office is marked by just a series of debacles, gaffes, blunders, and massive mistakes that have left our country weaker, poorer, and more divided than ever before. I mean, you can go down any policy issue, the economy, inflation skyrocketed. People have to choose between heating and eating. Our hard-earned tax dollars are worth less every single day thanks to his reckless spending and disastrous policies. And then you look at, our standing on the world stage. When he was sitting there tonight, did any of us think wow, that's really going to put the fear of God into Russia, China, any of our adversaries? You look at what happened in Afghanistan. That was a complete humiliation. We lost innocent American troops in a chaotic, shameful retreat. And it's clear that he is utterly unfit to be a commander-in-chief. And I think the part that actually just irritated me the most was that he wasn't truthful. He sat there and said, I've been straight with you. I want to be truthful with you. But he wasn't truthful with us at all. He never talked about his health condition, his ability to serve. The American people were promised a president who would lead with strength and clarity and unity. But we got somebody whose fitness for office was just constantly in question, and it was covered up. And it was covered up by every single person around him, his cabinet members, and the vice president who he is now passing the torch to.
Ashley Hayek, I want to get into this a little bit with you because this entire passing of the torch, I'm going to give you my analysis, and I want you to agree with it, disagree with it, or add to it. Biden can't win. They have this war chest, somewhat comparable, maybe now surpassing it based on the reporting, somewhat comparable to what the Trump team has. They have a candidate that can't produce, right? The Democrats, they've got Joe Biden. So they're thinking, we want a candidate. Now, the media and everybody else are saying, well, Joe can't win. I don't think any Democrat can win, right? I don't think any other person can win because Trump's had so much momentum leading into this, right? He kind of, took a little time off after he left office, but he's been guns blazing on the campaign trail. He was campaigning while he was in all these different fake, phony, fraud trials that they had him involved in. So my thinking is they choose Kamala Harris because she's the best option to use the money that they have to try to mitigate the losses and make sure that the down ballot tickets don't take a bloodbath, to use their word, right? The way that they would with Biden there. But there's no path to victory for Harris, or am I being too presumptive?
So I never want to take anything for granted, especially on a political campaign, obviously. However, there's a couple things in general of how this has played out. On Sunday afternoon when it was announced, I was sitting at Fox in the Washington, D.C. bureau. I was on a panel. There was a Democrat operative to my left. And when the host announced, Joe Biden is going to be not seeking reelection, the lady sitting next to me said, "I'm sorry, is that confirmed? Is that really is that true?" And he had just finished talking about how, it was clear that Joe Biden and this administration and the Democrat Party would not be able to win the White House and the Senate. Was the play at this point really to save the House in the down ballot races? And her answer was, "Oh, yes, absolutely." And this is part of this lie that is so frustrating to me, because up until that moment, everybody was saying that it was because of his health. He doesn't look well. The debate was a disaster. And then as soon as they coerced him, bullied him to step aside, it was, "Oh, it's because he was going to lose. It was his fault. Kamala is the winner. She's the golden ticket."
Right.
She hasn't won anything. She's hardly won anything. She's never won anything outside of California, ever. She had to drop out. She couldn't even win her home state when she was running for president. So, they have basically had to install her because she is incapable of winning over the hearts of Americans.
Yeah, really well put. So, and my thinking is, any candidate, you, me, anybody, you tell us, hey, you've got 3 months to run for president. This sounds like a tall order, right? I don't know that switching candidates helps them at all. Maybe it gives them a maximum 20% boost. And again, I'm not trying to count chickens before they hatch. I'm just looking at it kind of practically. I just don't see how if the Republicans had done this, I would be, I think, equally as critical, saying, how do you think you win an election changing, the candidate 3 months out? I don't know if that's happened in history before. I can't think of a time where it did. And I can't help but think that they're just trying to mitigate losses. Now, the other side of this is, what if the role was reversed and perhaps Joe Biden would have said, look, for health reasons, I'm not where I used to be. I'm slower than I used to be. I want to leave my legacy the right way. I'm going to leave you with President Harris. I'm stepping aside. She's stepping in. And then she gets to campaign as president for 3 months. Do you think that changes the game?
Well, a couple things. Number one, the short time is actually a benefit, in my opinion, to Kamala Harris.
Less time for vetting?
It's less time. That's exactly right. They can appeal to people based on what we're not supposed to talk about, her gender, her ethnicity, etc. So they can appeal to people on that level. She's the prosecutor, when really her record is more radical, more left than Joe Biden. I mean, she compared ICE agents to KKK. She was the one who helped perpetuate lies about the Border Patrol agents allegedly whipping people as they were illegally entering our country, which was not true, and she never apologized or took it back or corrected the record. She's been a huge fan of censorship, and she has spoke publicly about social media companies, saying that she believes that and would require that leaders in that space would work directly with the government to censor, which is absolutely unbelievable. So, I mean, when you look at her record, and those are like the lights. That's the lights radical part. I mean, her record as a prosecutor is by far significantly worse. So the fact that they only have 3 months, they're able to not go deep with her, and they think that they can kind of just brush off Joe Biden's record. But really, it's her record, and she's so much worse. She, as the vice president, was the tiebreaker in the Senate, and she's the one that voted for all of the policies that have caused inflation to skyrocket. So she owns every bit of this administration's decisions. They're just trying to brush it off, and that's why I think those 3 months is a blessing. The other point that you made about, wouldn't it be better for him to pass on the torch if she ran as president? That doesn't work for them because they need the grift. And they need to make sure that, he can fulfill all the way up to the last minute, pardon his family, and then step aside. If it is Kamala, she can't pardon the Bidens as president and then think that the Democrat Party is going to continue to do well, because it's just more problems for them.
Yeah, I see.
It shows the
that.
corruption.
Good point. I'm going to take a pause here. Ashley Hayek is Executive Director of America First Works. Coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Unbelievably, despite all of the damage she's caused, radical, liberal Kamala Harris now wants a promotion to deliver 4 more years of chaos. We've had the worst 4 years. I say about Biden, if you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of our country, added them up, they won't have done the damage that crooked Joe Biden has done. But this November, the American people are going to tell her, no thanks, Kamala. You've done a terrible job. You've been terrible at everything you've done. You're ultra-liberal, that we don't want you here. We don't want you anywhere. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired.
That, of course, is El Trumpito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, at his rally, and saying, Kamala, you're fired, in true Trump fashion. And I can't wait for the American people to say that. But I want to get some reaction to what Trump had to say. And, of course, Biden's big Oval Office address from our guest, Ashley Hayek. She is Executive Director of America First Works. Ashley, when you hear President Trump make these comments and the crowd go wild, what's the first thing that comes through your head?
Well, he's absolutely right. And he's attacking Kamala's record, and he's, calling her to the mat for all the right things. He's exactly right. The left wants to talk about democracy. So back in 2023, a year ago, our organization was on the ground in several states, and what we saw the left do is it would focus on 2 issues. One was abortion. The other was what I like to call bad MAGA. So January 6th, threat to democracy, just kind of the same rhetoric. They never had a plan. They never had a policy solution. They never talked about how they were improving the lives of Pennsylvanians or Georgians or anybody, really. And so looking forward, we're seeing them do the exact same thing. And when you look at, number one, Joe Biden's speech tonight, one of the things he said was he quoted the Declaration of, Benjamin Franklin at the Declaration of Independence when he said, we must all hang together, or most assuredly, we will all hang separately. And what he was referring to are the signers and the states they represented to stick together against their greatest enemy, which was Great Britain. Well, today, it's clear who the enemy is, and it's closer to home more than ever before. And it's the radical left who wants to mask your kids and force racist education and keep them out of schools and mutilate their gender. And they want abortion up until the moment of birth, taxpayer funded on demand. They want to come after you if you go to the wrong protest, recite the wrong prayer. They'll come for you. Donald Trump, President Trump has always said, they're coming after you. I'm just standing in the way. And that's exactly right. And that has been Kamala's speech this whole time as the, quote, tough prosecutor. So when President Trump is going after and saying, we're going to fire her, she's a liberal, she's not for democracy, he's exactly right. And then you start going down her record and you see, wow, she is by far way more radical. She owns every single bit of what the Biden-Harris administration has done to America for the past 3.5 years. But even more so, she has to own her own record as well. And that's pretty atrocious.
Outstanding. Really, really well put. And, you know, what's funny is the prosecutor-in-chief, Que Mala Eres, she had nothing to say when they were burning the American flag earlier today in Washington, D.C. I want to get your reaction to that when we come back. Folks, we're on with Ashley Hayek, Executive Director of America First Works. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. And while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel was in Washington speaking to a joint session of Congress, he gave lots of remarks, and he had tons of critics. There were thousands of protesters outside, pro-Hamas, people that were protesting what's going on in Gaza. They brought down an American flag. They torched this flag, and it's been making the rounds on social media all day. Ashley Hayek is Executive Director of America First Works. She's with us now. I want to get your reaction to that.
Well, first of all, his speech was absolutely incredible. I thought he did an amazing job, very moving. Families of the hostages were on the floor. That was also incredible. You know, one of the things that he said was, I have a message for the protesters. When the tyrants of Tehran, who hangs gays from cranes and murder women for not covering their hair, are praising, promoting, and funding you, you have officially become Iran's useful idiots. And he's exactly right. You know, Kamala Harris wasn't there. She has to walk a very fine line, or so she thinks. The reason over half of the Democrats skipped is because it has become politically unsavory for the radical left pro-Hamas wing of their party for them to engage and acknowledge Netanyahu and one of our greatest allies in the world. Quite frankly, it disgusts me. And so how I look at this is we have a choice this November. You have the Hamas-Harris burning American flag, setting up encampments on college campuses, bullying and harassing Jewish students, yelling river to the sea and calling for genocide. Or you have the UNC American-loving patriots who respect our flag, its legacy, and the American dream, and for everyone to pursue equal opportunity. One's the right side, one's the left side. You can, based on the actions today, figure out who belongs to who. But that's going to be the decision that we have this fall.
Ashley Hayek, I really appreciate your commentary. And Biden says history is in our hands. I say the future's in our hands. I want to thank you for being with us tonight. You're a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a great night.
You too, folks. Check her out at America First Works. And I want to continue the conversation. We've got Open Phone America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't move a muscle.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
What's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. It's hour number 3. We like to call this hour Open Phone America. Now, Open Phones Across America is a time-honored tradition on this program. Goes back as far as I've been around, right? Back 46 years, Larry King dedicated a portion of the program to Open Phone America. Jim Bohannon continued that tradition, and you and I are continuing that tradition tonight. The phone number is 833-4825-337-8334 Valdez. And to be very frank with you, even though I'm not frank, I love this part of the show. I love connecting with callers. Like right now, they're putting their comments in right now. We've got Idaho, Nebraska, Iowa, Florida, Michigan, and Montana, and more. There's more that, they're still filling it out. I can't see it on the screen yet. But I love that we have this national conversation every night. It really is a benefit to me. I think it's a benefit to everybody listening, because so many people get to hear the perspectives of when our callers in Oregon call in, our callers in California call in, our callers from New York call in. It's just really, in my opinion, it's a real blessing. And we've got lots of listeners. We've got the middle of the country, WKAN, folks out in the Chicago area. So, there's just a lot of people listening, a lot of people commenting, and it's a very robust conversation, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's going on, right? News of the day. Of course, El Trompito had a rally. We'll get to some of those clips as well. We have Joe Biden, the big story. Joe Biden gave his first speech since announcing his resignation in a very weird manner. Not resignation, but announcing his withdrawal from the presidential race. The letter put on Twitter, then the phone call to Kamala, and now an Oval Office address, which I guess some would say warrants it, but, there were so many other things. Like, when he talked about inflation, why didn't he do it then instead of having that inflation party? Remember they had the inflation party? They were like, oh, inflation. Yeah, let's have a party. Just crazy. Anyway, I'm pretty sure he regrets that now that he's getting pushed straight out of politics. But as a sitting president, nice job, Joe Biden. But we have plenty to discuss. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu descended on Washington, D.C. today for a speech that he delivered to a joint session of Congress. And, of course, this welcomed thousands of protesters that wanted to shut him up and speak their mind and attack, and they brought down an American flag. Listen to this.
The crowd is gathered outside of Union Station. They managed to take down an American flag that was on that pole and raise the Palestinian flag. I just heard 2 very large bangs, and the situation has grown increasingly tense here in the last few minutes. Police managed to apprehend someone who had taken down the American flag and brought him back to here. You can see there's a huge line of police stretching the length of this very large train station. There's now black smoke coming as well. So, you can see as this event has gone on, what has been a mostly peaceful protest has become a little more raucous and violent.
That's Willie Lowry with The National describing these protesters burning an American flag outside. And again, I understand it's free speech. Listen, nobody protects free speech more than me, or at least I like to think that. But this is one of those things I wish that the Supreme Court would have found is not speech, and that you can't go burning any country's flag, honestly. I think that, should be something that we hold somewhat sacrosanct and figure out another way. Burn, like when they used to burn the stuffed paper mache dummies in effigy of Bush or Obama or whomever. I think that's appropriate. But I think, country's flag should be off limits. It's my thinking. Anyway, why are these people up in arms about this speech? Well, we've got a couple of clips. I want you to hear a little bit of Prime Minister Netanyahu in Washington, D.C. this evening.
For all we know, Iran is funding the anti-Israel protests that are going on right now outside this building, not that many, but they're there, and throughout the city. Well, I have a message for these protesters. When the tyrants of Tehran, who hang gays from cranes and murder women for not covering their hair, are praising, promoting, and funding you, you have officially become Iran's useful idiots. Some of these protesters, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC.
So that is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu getting quite a reaction from the crowd. And this is what they were upset about. The fact that he is calling out the left and saying that they are the useful idiots of Iran for participating in this. And he got those thunderous applause. I agree. Iran is an enemy of the United States. They constantly remind us of that. They shout death to America and not a friend of ours. And now I want to continue here. I want to go to your phone calls. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. Let's go to Walter, St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Go right ahead, Walter.
Hi again, Rich. Always inspiring shows. As you mentioned today, the U.S. flag in Washington was pulled down off the flagpole and set on fire. And Rich, unless heads start getting cracked, it'll get worse because they sense the weakness. Now, would Bo Dietl or the character of NYPD Blue and Andy Sipowicz or maybe the Valdez brothers just have stood there like that? Or MPs on an army base? They would have never just stood there like that.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you on that one. Just because it's your free speech doesn't mean you won't get your ass kicked, right? And I think there was a time in American history where that was the case, but it seems to have gone away. And I'm not calling for violence. I'm not saying people should. I'm just saying that's a natural reaction, I think, from many people, especially those who've paid service to that flag and say, or who've lost a loved one who gave a sacrifice for that flag. And people aren't going to take it lying down, but they are, right? They are lying down when you've got 1,000 people, descending on Washington for these types of protests. So I get it. And again, I'm not the guy that's going to say, look, I'm going to beat you up because I don't like what you say. I don't want anybody beating me up because they don't like what I say. And I know a lot of people don't like what I say, Walter. But I am saying that I've seen people defend the flag before, and I'm sure we're going to continue to see that. And ultimately, we should, I feel, I don't like Iran, and I don't burn the Iranian flag, right? I might make a picture of the Ayatollah and burn that. Something else. There's many ways to make these things. I think we need to be mindful and respectful when we have our disagreements. I can't stand the regime in Iran, and the last thing I want to do is burn anything of theirs, right? My disdain with them is philosophical and intellectual, if you will. They're not knocking at my door. I'm not knocking at theirs. But things can get ugly. They can get hairy, and I hope and I pray that they don't. But Walter, very astute in reminding me that there are people that just won't put up for this stuff, and it's something I think we're going to see a lot more of. A lot more people standing up for what they believe in, whether it's snatching it out of the way, linking arms around it. However they decide to protect the flag, I do believe that's for many, they see it as their patriotic duty. And Walter, thank you for the call. Shout out to St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Folks, keep it locked right here. We're going to come right back to the rest of your calls. We got calls from all over the place. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I know
who we all are. I know who is here. And I know, therefore, that we share a vision for the future of our nation. A future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. A future of social justice, health justice, economic justice, just as you have laid out in this year's theme. Ours is a vision of a future in which we realize the promise of America. And I deeply believe in the promise of America.
That, of course, is Kamala Harris, the vice president, who's now the presumptive nominee for president for the Democrat Party. And Kamala Harris says that she believes in the promise of America. I really hope she does. I would hate to have a president that didn't believe in the hope of America. But she's it. She's in, and Joe is out. What's interesting is it was just a few short days ago, 5, 6, maybe 7 at the best, days ago, where Biden's campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, said that Biden is staying in this race. Check this out.
Absolutely, the president's in this race. You've heard him say that time and time again. And I think we saw on display last night exactly why, because Donald Trump is not going to offer anything new to the American people. He's the same person he was in 2020. He's the same person he was at the debate stage. He's the same person he is that is about himself and not about the American people. And Joe Biden is more committed than ever to beat Donald Trump. And we believe on this campaign we are built for the close election that we are in, and we see the path forward. The president is the leader of our campaign and of the country, and he is clearly, in our impression and what we've built and in our engagement with voters, he is the best person to take on Donald Trump and prosecute that case and present his vision versus what we saw last night.
Somebody's lying here, right? This doesn't smell right. I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's go to the phones. 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. Let's go to Lansing, Michigan, WILS. Ken, go right ahead.
Rich, great show as always. I want to say something real quick before I get to what I told you, tall screen. I want to apologize to the rest of this country for that walking piece of garbage known as Rashida Tlaib that held up a sign today in front of Benton Netanyahu calling him a war criminal when this lady attends a mosque in Dearborn, Michigan that has speakers out in front of it all the time with megaphones shouting death to America. So,
Wow.
I mean, she's a real special human being, I tell you.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen it personally. I've actually seen that on some national stuff, too, on my phone. But, yeah,
Wow.
I heard about it. Yeah. I mean, the guy's just right out there on the sidewalk, Rich, right out in front of God and everybody. No shame in his game, just chanting death to America in Arabic, and the Arabic people that are there chatting right along with him. But, yeah, right on the streets of Dearborn, Michigan. What a beautiful...
What's on your mind tonight, Ken?
This guy that was a campaign manager or a head up guy in Biden's campaign on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock said that Joe Biden was definitely still in the race, and he's looking forward to the campaign trail. And less than 3 hours later, El Joso puts out a little letter saying, yeah, folks, I think I'm going to have to chill for a little bit. He ain't even got the guts to get on a news conference. Look at the people, that the 15 million Democrats that elected him for this year to be their delegate. And he's just, I mean, he is what he is. He's a coward. He always has been a coward, Rich.
Ken, yeah, I think you're right on that one. And honestly, this is Biden. I don't know that he cowered here. I think he was forced to cower. I mean, there was nowhere for him to go. They said they were, from what I understand, he was threatened with the 25th Amendment. And to me, it makes all the sense in the world that's the only leverage that they have, right? What else do you have but to tell the president, look, we will make sure you're not president anymore. And I think that appeals to lots of sensibilities when you're in politics, right? And you need to have people. And if you don't have people, you don't have people. And if you don't have people, you don't have money. So clearly, that's the way this went. But Ken, thank you for your thoughts and for letting me know about what's going on in Dearborn. I'll definitely check it out and see if we can get some audio of that and maybe an interpreter to let us know exactly what they're saying, because, again, I was not aware that was going on. Ken in Lansing, Michigan, WILS. Thank you, sir. Let me see. We continue. I wanted to go to... hold on. Don't go anywhere. Here we go. Nancy, Ottumwa, Iowa, KBIZ. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say Harris, that's going to run for president. Judge Brown's mentioned that she slept her way up to become a judge. She slept with people to work her way up the top.
I've heard this criticism of her in the past with her relationships with Montel Williams and Mayor Brown and whatnot, Willie Brown. I've heard this before. I don't know that it's true or not true, but I can tell you that it's not going to work this time around if it were true, right? She's going to really have to earn it. She's going to have to beat Trump in a debate. She's going to have to make the case to the people that are watching. And there are lots of people are watching. It's a presidential election year, and nobody wants to write things off. People actually want to see what's going on. So I don't know how successful she's going to be with everybody watching and expecting things to be on the up and up. But we're going to find out. Nancy, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Ottumwa, Iowa, KBIZ. And we will continue. Let me see. Here we go. John, Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rick. Good morning, and thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I'm calling about the Biden issue, but first of all, I agree with you 100% on the flag burning.
Good.
Okay,
Glad we have some common ground.
Anybody who does that is just hurting their own cause, whatever it is. So they're pretty stupid if they do that, okay?
Yeah.
In terms of Biden, I know that you don't like him and many of your callers. I don't know about your general audience because I think only a very small percentage of people actually call you. And
yes, probably one or 2%.
Right. So I'm addressing my remarks to those people who don't call you. And first of all, I think what Biden did to resign, or he essentially resigned, although he's president for another 6 months, was a class act. And
yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Yep. The music means we're going to have a hard break. John, I'll try and hang on, and we'll try and come back to you so you can finish your thought. Folks, we're coming right back. It's Open Phone America with me, Rich Valdez, on America at Night. 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Call now, 833-4Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now.
That, of course, is Joe El Baboso Biden, who is saying it's time for new voices. And John from Burlington, Vermont, graciously is on hold, saying that he thinks it is a class act, a classy thing to do for Biden to step aside because he has no shot at winning. Go right ahead, John.
Exactly. I would agree that he had no shot of winning, and it's glad that he realized that. You know, people who are at the top of their game oftentimes have a hard time to let go. You're old enough, I think, to remember Muhammad Ali, probably the greatest boxer of all time, did not know enough when to stop, and as a result got physically, and mentally damaged by continuing on. Willie Mays, probably many consider the greatest baseball player of all time, continued to play. He played with the Mets and rookie pitchers were coming in and striking him out. He didn't know when to quit. So the fact that Joe did, I think, is great. 2 quick comments, and I'll get off and let you go to your other callers. Donald Trump, I hope that you and your listeners know, is the oldest person to ever be nominated for president. And he's not the same person he was 4 years ago either. And we won't go into that right now. Lastly, I would say for some of your listeners, go back and remember your Greek mythology and King Midas. You remember King Midas?
Everything he touched turned to gold.
Exactly. He made a wish that everything would turn to gold. So I would say to some of your Trumpsters out there, be careful for what you wish for, because you got your wish number one. You have now taken on someone who is going to put Donald Trump in his place.
Yeah, well, I would submit to you that I don't think it was anybody's wish for Biden to get out of the race. I wanted Trump to run against Biden. I think, early on I said, it'd be better if he ran against Kamala. But after seeing how Joe really started to just get so soft, I figured this is the best layup ever. So now that he's running against Kamala, a little bit more energy might be needed, because she's going to, constantly be in his face, calling him a felon and, just on the attack. But ultimately, I just don't see her really beating him on substantive issues like record, like the border, where she's the quote-unquote border czar. We're going to get to that in a little bit. So, John, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. While we disagree, I appreciate your position on those things. And a big shout out to everybody listening in Vermont on WVMT. Now, I want to continue. I want to continue our conversation. Let me see here. Mike is in Omaha, Nebraska, listening online, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead, Mike.
Hey, thanks, Rich. Hey, first, thank you for having me on, first-time caller. But I do
welcome, sir.
John.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say that, but there's no class there in the Biden family there. The reason I think he's dropping out, and I'm going to tell you what, just my opinion, has nothing to do with anything, but I think he's having a medical problem that's forced him out. And I'm going to say what I'm going to say, because I've been a paramedic 25 years, and what I saw
25 years. You've seen a thing or two.
What I just saw is an elderly man who just suffered a mini stroke. We call them TIAs.
TIA, right? Transient ischemic attack.
Yes. Yeah, I think he's had a few, because I noticed something watching that and listening to that. I noticed that his slurred speech is more consistent than ever before. And that's to me is a red flag. And I have this feeling that he's forced out because I think something happened and they're concealing it. It's just my opinion. It's kind of what I saw. I don't know. Maybe it didn't happen, but I don't see.
And you're saying this is in tonight's address or at the debate?
Yes. No.
Which one?
This one you just shared, the speech about how.
Yeah, tonight. That was a couple hours ago.
Yeah,
right.
Tonight. Yes. So I'm thinking that, you know what, something's happened and we don't know about it, but I think it'll come out eventually. But, well, like I said, I'm kind of sad. I agree with you. Sure. I wanted him to be in the race because it was a slam dunk. It was a slam dunk for Trump to win that. And now I'm depressed because I wanted him to stay in the race. And now, because I knew we had this wrapped up.
Yeah, it definitely was. I agree with you. It was a slam dunk. It was a layup. But I don't want to sound overly presumptuous, and not because I give so much credit to Kamala, but I give so much credit to the fake news media. Right, I really do. They have an incredible way of swaying things, and they give me a lot of stuff that I use. Right, like I know that all these guys were not really that shocked or dismayed, but I go along with it. Like Anderson Cooper, when at his post-debate performance with Kamala Harris. I don't know if you remember that, but she does an interview right after Biden craps the bed in the debate, and he's incredulous. You asked for this debate, is what he tells her. He starts off with that. You asked for this debate. Why would you do that? And she says, well, it wasn't a strong start, and she's like trying to cover it up, and the whole thing is contrived, and it appeared that way, and especially now in retrospect, when you look at it, you go, oh, sure. This was, all part of a litmus test where they said, Joe, you got to go. You got to go. You're not it. And he, of course, likely responds, no, I'm in the game. I'm doing great. Come on. I'm not stepping out. No way. And like, all right, then, you know what? If you're going to refuse to get out, we're going to have to move up this debate so that you can show us that you can take this guy on. And if you can prove it in this earliest ever debate we've ever had, then we'll schedule some more and you can kick Trump's butt. But if not, that leaves us enough time to make a move. What do you say? And Joe, I got hairy legs. I got it. My word is a Biden. I'm going to take care of this. And he agrees to it. He agrees to it, and then he messes up, right? And that's why those days following the debate, he packed his schedule, and he's like, come on, I'm out here. I'm doing it. I'm doing the job, man. I've done more events. I'm doing events. You're not paying attention, right? He was really defending himself because he was being put on offense, not by the media so much, even though they were doing the dirty work of Obama or whomever is pulling the strings here, the donor class, etc., but because that's what they did. They did the bidding that they were supposed to do. They went on the attack path they had to go on, which was no matter what Biden did, they were always going to say Biden messed this up royally and he's no good and we can't trust him. And they did it. So now on cue, they come in. Kamala's got all the energy in the world. She's terrific. Trump better watch out. She is a prosecutor. She's going to prosecute this like anyone else. And now she's the best thing ever. If she was that good, they should have picked her to run for president, right? Oh, wait, we did that. And it didn't work at all. Anyway, Mike, great points. I appreciate your service as a paramedic. And thanks for your thoughts on what you saw tonight. Very scary stuff. I've seen my dad have a TIA. That's how I know what that is. And not fun for anybody. Just a very difficult time. So my thoughts and prayers to Biden and his family. I'm glad he's not in the throes of a rigorous campaign for president. Probably not in his best interest in the least. Definitely not in the country's best interest. Mike in Omaha. Thank you, sir. All right, folks, I pause here. I come back. We got calls from all over. We've got calls from, Fargo, North Dakota, Tampa, Florida, Akron, Ohio, Georgetown, Delaware, Topeka, Kansas, Albany, New York, Missouri, Green City, Missouri, Boise, Idaho, Evergreen, Montana. I'm going to try and get to every last call that's on here, so we're going to move quick so that everybody gets a chance. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with you all, the American people, we the people, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. I want to go to Akron, Ohio, WNIR, and check in with Peggy. Peggy, what's on your mind?
Well, it's been on my mind for a long time, and I trust you, so I have not asked anyone else this question except your screener, except for your screener.
Okay.
President Trump is a very smart man. He knows how to connect dots. And he understands people.
Yes.
I believe he really understands people and knows what they might and might not do. On January the 6th, and if I'm out of line asking you this, please tell me.
Sure, no, go for it.
On January the 6th, instead of telling the people to go peacefully to the Capitol, why didn't he tell all those people, go home?
Well, that's a really very, very good question or a good point that you raise. At the rally that he had, the Stop the Steal rally, he said, now we're going to go and we're going to go peacefully and patriotically and let Congress hear us, right? They're going to walk to the Capitol with their protest. Now, once things got out of hand at the Capitol, that's exactly what he did. And maybe the media shielded you from hearing this, because I know a lot of CNN, MSNBC, even to some degree Fox, they were not willing to play the entirety of his comments. And I can't play all of them here, but I will share this part with you. Listen really carefully, Peggy.
We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order.
That is President Trump standing outside the White House, making these comments. You have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to respect the good people in law enforcement. So he did say it. And he also put it on Twitter before they kicked him off of Twitter. He was on Twitter. So don't let the fake news media ever, try to mislead you, Peggy, because you're not the only one that thinks that he didn't say these things. Many people don't even know that he called for the people to be peaceful and patriotic or to go home. And the reality is this is part of the con job that the media conducted on the American people. And in my opinion, it really is such a shame that they did. But his day of reckoning is upon us, right?
Yeah, we're all going to have to answer for whatever we have done.
Amen to that. Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate it. And thanks for putting your faith in this program. We try our best to do the right thing here. God bless you. All right, folks, we continue. Where do I want to go? I want to go to Eduardo, Tampa, Florida, listening online, richvaldez.com. Go for it, my man.
Yeah, Rich, immigration. Was listening to the Chicago radio today, and they're complaining because they're going to be getting the busloads from Mr. Abbott's state. They're saying 25,000, just in time for that convention in August. But Kamala Harris doesn't have a good record on illegal immigration. I was listening to one of the California stations, and they talked about this one illegal who got off from a killing of an innocent person over there in one instance. So
right.
This is something that we need to bring up when we're debating
on the campaign.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and listen to this, Eduardo. You know what's interesting is that this was in the news today, right? Axios was reporting that, Republicans keep calling Kamala Harris the border czar because Republicans or the right or whomever have just kind of falsely assigned this responsibility, and that was never part of her responsibility as vice president. Yet there's a bunch of instances where President Biden came out to the American people and said, this is her job. And we've got the tape. Listen to this.
Now Vice President Kamala Harris is stepping into a new role, taking the lead on the immigration crisis for the White House.
And with pressure growing on the Biden administration, the president tapping Vice President Kamala Harris to take the lead.
I think the best thing to do is to put someone who, when he or she speaks, they don't have to wonder about, is that where the president is? When she speaks for me.
President Joe Biden on Wednesday put Vice President Kamala Harris in charge of efforts to stem the flow of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border that has led to a surge in unaccompanied children and an overcrowding of processing facilities.
But the vice president's agreed
to be the point person on immigration.
Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job.
There's no question that this is a challenging situation.
The situation centers around the biggest surge in migrants to cross the U.S.-Mexico border in 20 years.
Taking on the border crisis today, putting Vice President Kamala Harris in charge.
Federal facilities being overwhelmed by the number of unaccompanied minors arriving each and every day.
So, Eduardo, you're 100% right. She has a big immigration problem, an illegal immigration problem. Chicago's up in arms, and rightfully so, because they allow this to happen. And Kamala's going to have to deal with this, right? Que mala eres will have to pay the price with the American people when she never prosecuted any case against these people that illegally crossed the border, these crimes that have been committed, these rapes that have occurred unnecessarily. All of this has happened on her watch, and the best that she can come up with is, oh, well, that was never really my job. People don't have such short memories like she thinks. And she's going to have to be accountable for that in front of the people. Eduardo in Tampa, Florida, thanks for your call. Listening online, richvaldez.com. I appreciate it. Folks, we're coming right back. The rest of your calls and more in the speed round. Stick around. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, let's hit the phones. Dora, Topeka, Kansas, KMAJ. What's on your mind? Very quickly.
Hi, Rich. This is what's on my mind. I'm a Democrat, and I voted for Trump in 2016, 2020, and I'm going to vote for him again in 2024. I was better off 4 years ago, and I think everyone else was. And I cannot stand Biden, have not liked him since 1988 when he was exposed as the arrogant charlatan that he was when he was running for the Democratic nominee back then.
And he lied, right? And he did all that perjury and he had to get out of that race. Dora, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. And you're right. And good for you. And I hope there's a lot more Democrats like you. America needs that support right now. Godspeed to you. KMAJ, Topeka, Kansas. Let us quickly go to Ralph. Very quickly. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Quickly, go for it.
Rich, hey, thanks again for last night. It was good to talk with you. I just want to say thank you for having Ashley Hayek on. Great discussion tonight. Just some points to bring up real quick. But you guys had mentioned, what had happened if Joe Biden would leave the presidency, and of course Kamala would come in. Just a couple points. The challenges of her trying to run the country and hit the campaign trail, I think, would be overwhelming, especially for her.
I think you're right. It would overwhelm a lot of people. It would be, this is overwhelming. The fact that we have Biden pulling out of the race 3.5 months ahead of time, I think is incredibly overwhelming for people. And the media is trying to normalize it, but there's nothing normal about it. But thank you for saying kind words about our guest, Ashley Hayek. She really is terrific, and I appreciate it, Ralph. KDKA in the building. We continue. Let us hear, where do we go? We go to Frank, Fargo, North Dakota, WDAY. Go right ahead quickly.
Hi. Quickly, yes, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mayorkas, Mayorkas, Director of Homeland Security, Overseer of the Secret Service. We tried to impeach him. He got not impeached.
He kind of squirreled away like a snake, right? He slithered away and he escaped his fate because of Mitch McConnell in the Senate. But hopefully we can change all of that in November. And Frank, I appreciate it. I hate to cut you off, but I got a minute to go and another 5 calls. I don't think I get to everybody, so let me see what I could do here. Paul, I owe you from yesterday. Paul, go right ahead. Boise, Idaho.
Just a postscript. Tell Donald, our president, to keep the foot on the accelerator. Don't let off all the way through the elections.
Amen. That's a very good point. He has to keep his foot on the gas, because if he doesn't keep his foot on the gas, we'll never get to where we've got to be. Steve in Green City, Missouri. Court case 1989, Texas versus Johnson. It's legal to burn the flag. What else do we got here? Linda in Albany, Frank in Evergreen, and Jerry in Georgetown. I love the Larry King idea. Folks, give me a call tomorrow, 833-4-VALDEZ. Hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.